All right, everybody, this is finally the History of Gaming Lesson 1, Naughts and Crosses, and Tennis for 2. So we are moving on from our History of Computers section or unit, and we are finally going to begin our History of Gaming unit. So Lesson 1, Naughts and Crosses, and Tennis for 2. So the right for discussion, feel free to write them down. I look forward to reading your responses. What is your interpretation of the first video game? The first ever, or the first one you've ever played? Okay, so this is the birth of video games, the 1950s. This guy right here is Alexander Sandy Douglas. He was born May 21st, 1921 in London, England. He attended the University of Cambridge. He worked on a PhD in human-computer interactions. Yes, that was actually a curriculum back in the early or mid, I should say, 1900s. However, to earn his degree, he needed an example to prove his theories within his thesis. So this is essentially a final assignment, final project before he graduates. A.S. Douglas creates the first documented computer game, and it is called Naughts and Crosses. Okay. As a part of his doctoral dissertation for the University of Cambridge on human-computer interaction. It was created on the electric delay automatic storage calculator, also known as the EDASC. This was a computer that was unique to Cambridge University. At the time, this was only the second known computer that was capable of storing information. Only the second known one in the world. Human players would verse the computer. So this is PVC. Player versus computer. The game was nicknamed OXO, or Tic-Tac-Toe. Let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. This is how the game ran. There you go. Very exciting, very thrilling, I know. This guy, William A. Higginbotham, okay? Born October 25th, 1910, from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He grew up in upstate New York. He attended Cornell University, so he's a smart guy, and he actually worked on radar technology at MIT. And he becomes an American physicist. World War II erupts around the world, 1939 to 1945. Higginbotham actually worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, and he was the head of the lab's electronics group. This team was a part of the Manhattan Project. And if you don't know what the Manhattan Project is, that is the development of the atomic bomb. In the later years of the war, his team developed electronics for the very first atomic or nuclear bomb. His team created the bomb's ignition mechanism as well as the measuring instruments for the device. Higginbotham also created radar for the B-28 bomber right here. Following his experience with a nuclear weapon, Higginbotham helped found the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Group, the Federation of American In 1947, Higginbotham took a position at the Brookhaven National Laboratory. That is just minutes from here at Sequoia High School, where he worked until his retirement in 1984. He ends up creating a computer game called Tennis for Two for the laboratory's annual exposition. He wanted to make a fun and engaging exhibit in the lobby for the event, so something that people could play with in the lobby while they are waiting to go into the actual exhibit itself. He discovered one of the lab's analog computers could calculate ballistic missiles and their trajectories. He used this ability to form the game's foundation and development. So, a ballistic missile, right? You have a missile, and when you drop it, where is it going to land? This is what the computer would generate, the trajectory, the path that the missile would follow. So that comes very in handy for his game Tennis for Two, because this game simulated a tennis match displayed on an oscilloscope. It is one of the first electronic games to use a graphical display, and it is the predecessor of Pong. So remember, we just talked about, here's your missile, and it's going to follow this path, right? Well, the same thing's going to occur if you got a tennis ball, right, and you hit it. Well, what's going to happen to it? It's going to go back and forth and back and forth. So it's the same technology being used. Ooh, I'm not liking the way this is looking today. A tennis ball or a blip of light bounces off a horizontal line, okay, at the bottom of a tiny 5-inch diameter oscilloscope screen. So imagine that 5 inches is your screen. Now we play on 55, 65, 75 inches. We only had a 5-inch screen here for Tennis for Two. Okay, sorry about this, guys. Players control the game with a small handheld metal box equipped with a dial or push button. And these are actually the first ever controllers right here, first ever. Higginbotham created Tennis for Two in a few weeks. And the crazy part is that he designed the first ever video game controllers in just under 2 hours. Very crazy. I'll show you a couple videos of Tennis for Two, and we'll call it a day. Okay, so no human players. You can't see any player with a tennis racket, right? You're simply just pressing the button and using your dial to put a little spin on the tennis ball. As you can see, you got your down and up, identified by the tape on top of this metal controller. There's no score. It's just a generic game to hit the ball back and forth. This was just meant to keep people busy while waited in line at Brookhaven National Lab. As you can see, all the sounds are mechanical. There's no built-in audio. It's just the mechanisms of the game. Let's see what we got here.
Day that occurred at Brookhaven for people to see were just posters and things, equipment, static exhibits. He wanted something interactive where the people would be able to actually do something. The division had an analog computer, Donner analog computer, that they used for solving mathematical problems. And it came with a little instruction book that showed how to program it to simulate a ball bouncing or ballistic missile trajectory or things like that. So he decided, well, this sounds like we could put together a tennis game and make it interactive where two people could play. So he sketched up the idea for the game in about 2 hours and gave it to lined up out the door of the
There it is.
gymnasium.
There's the
where
Brookhaven National
everything
Lab
being set up.
displays.
Brookhaven was celebrating its 50th anniversary in 1997, and as part of the celebration, each of the divisions and departments in the laboratory was asked to come up with a project that was taken in 1958. And the game is just a very small part in the corner of that picture. So we tried to figure out what kind of equipment was there and how it was set up. So we put together a board with the relays on it. We knew there are several relays in this. And we laid out the board with the relays and connected it to our simulated integrated circuit computer. We did it.
So here's
Willie
him playing the real
Higginbotham,
one.
in his notes, he was asked, why didn't you patent it? You could be a billionaire now if you'd done that. And his response was, well, the patent would have belonged to the U.S. government at the time, and it wouldn't have been any financial gain for him. But he really didn't feel that what he had done was such an innovation, because all the circuits that he programmed in were in this little instruction book. So there was nothing really new about wiring these things together to perform these functions. Yeah. The other.
Alright, I'll spare you guys from the rest of this, okay? But there are your first ever video games. So remember, Alexander Sandy Douglas, okay, made Naughts and Crosses, which was tic-tac-toe. And William A. Higginbotham, okay, made Tennis for Two at the Brookhaven National Lab. Alright.